Welcome to AudioCert, where the official study guides are brought to life. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a concept that is, well, absolutely fundamental to successful project delivery, yet it's often misunderstood or maybe even overlooked sometimes. We're talking about tailoring in project management, and believe me, it's a total game changer for anyone navigating complex work.
That's exactly right. We're opening up Chapter 3 of the Project Management Professional, or PMP, certification journey. And the PMP certification, it's really more than just a badge. It's about validating that you possess the essential knowledge and skills to not just manage, but truly lead complex projects to successful outcomes. It's definitely not just about memorizing terms. It's all about understanding how to apply these concepts, often in incredibly nuanced ways, in the real world. And tailoring is arguably one of the most practical and crucial aspects of that application. Here's the powerful, often overlooked truth. In today's fast-changing world, the most rigid project management approach is often, well, the riskiest one. True agility and success really come from deliberate, intelligent adaptation.
Tailoring. When I first saw that chapter title, it immediately piqued my curiosity. It sounds so hands-on, so customized. It conjures images of bespoke solutions, which feels like a refreshing change from some of the more theoretical concepts we've explored in project management. But what does tailoring truly mean in the PMP context? Are we talking about making bespoke suits for our projects, carefully fitted to every curve?
Not quite bespoke suits, no. Though the analogy of customization is actually very fitting. In project management, tailoring is officially defined as the deliberate adaptation of the project management approach, governance, and processes to make them more suitable for the given environment and the work at hand.
Deliberate adaptation. Okay, that sounds incredibly powerful, almost like you're actively sculpting your project's destiny.
It absolutely is. And the why behind this is just crucial. No single approach fits all projects. Think of it like this. Trying to use a single recipe for every single meal you cook, regardless of the ingredients you have, the occasion, or the tastes of your guests, it simply won't yield the best results. Projects exist in incredibly diverse environments, each with its own unique needs, its own particular challenges, and its own set of opportunities. So trying to force a rigid one-size-fits-all methodology onto every single project is like trying to use, a screwdriver for every task in a carpenter's toolbox. It just won't work effectively. Tailoring ensures that the way you manage a project is appropriate for that specific project, its unique context, and its goals. It's really about optimizing, not just standardizing.
So it's about being smart and flexible, being truly strategic rather than just mindlessly following a checklist. It sounds like it's a fundamental shift from how do we do project management to how do we do project management best for this unique situation.
Precisely. And this adaptation, it's driven by several critical factors. First, the guiding project management principles themselves. Things like being a diligent, respectful, and caring steward, or focusing on value delivery and systems thinking, which we've discussed before. They provide a broad framework for ethical and effective practice. Then, you've got organizational values. For example, if a core organizational value is customer centricity, then the activities you select for, say, requirement solicitation and scope validation, will naturally favor customer-centered approaches and feedback loops. Makes sense.
Correct. That makes total sense.
And the organizational culture also plays a huge role. An organization with a low appetite for risk, maybe in a highly regulated industry, might have many structured processes and procedures to guide projects, whereas a highly innovative, agile culture might favor rapid experimentation and less documentation.
So you're saying it's almost like the very DNA of the organization intrinsically influences the project's approach, setting its predispositions, when you say.
You've articulated it perfectly. It's about understanding that organizational heredity. And here's a key point that many people might find surprising. Project teams are often already doing tailoring. Whether they explicitly label it as such or not, maybe they're skipping a meeting that feels redundant, right? Or creating a new report format that makes more sense for their specific stakeholders, or even choosing a particular communication channel because it works best for this team. Tailoring, in essence, is about bringing mindfulness and purpose to that selection and adjustment of multiple project factors, making sure it's a conscious, beneficial effort rather than just, ad hoc changes driven by frustration.
That makes so much sense. I bet many of our listeners have experienced this. Perhaps they've been on projects that struggled because a rigid, one-size-fits-all approach was forced upon them, leading to frustration, burnout, maybe inefficiency. I certainly have. Or maybe without even realizing it, they've adapted things themselves just because it intuitively felt right for their specific situation. Maybe even feeling a little guilty about deviating from the rules. Ooh. So, this deep dive isn't just about understanding a formal concept, it's about understanding how to do it effectively and purposefully, to not only get better results, but also feel more confident and empowered in your decision making.
That's our mission today. We're going to unpack the intricacies of tailoring, explore what factors influence it, understand the systematic process for doing it right, and see how it applies to various aspects of project management. Ultimately, our goal is to help you deliver value more effectively by making your projects truly fit for purpose, transforming them from something you merely manage into something you strategically craft for success.
Okay, so with that compelling why now firmly in our minds, let's truly dig into the foundational aspects. First, maybe understanding what makes project environments so inherently complex, and then we'll naturally pivot to what exactly we can tailor.
Right, so to start, understanding this inherent complexity is the crucial why behind tailoring. Projects are constantly caught in this dynamic tug-of-war, trying to juggle multiple objectives, many of which can seem to pull in entirely different directions. The source material lays out some of these critical competing demands, and they really define the precarious balancing act we face on almost every project. First, there's the relentless push to deliver as quickly as possible. In today's market, time to market is often absolutely crucial for competitive advantage. Then there's the equally important need to minimize project costs. Every organization wants to be efficient and responsible with its resources, but you can't just be fast and cheap. You also need to focus on optimizing the value delivered. It's not just about finishing, but delivering something truly impactful and meaningful to the customer or organization. And of course, you absolutely must ensure creating high-quality deliverables and outcomes. Speed and cost can never come to the expense of functionality or reliability. That's a given. Beyond that, especially in certain sectors, we often need to ensure compliance with regulatory standards, which can involve extensive documentation and, well, audit trails. We also need to satisfy diverse stakeholder expectations, which can be a huge, intricate challenge in itself, as different stakeholders often have conflicting priorities. And finally, projects need to be capable of adapting to change because, let's be honest, the world around us is rarely static and requirements often shift midstream.
Wow, that's a lot to balance. It's like trying to perfectly spin 7 plates at once, each demanding equal attention, and they're all made of glass. How do you, for example, successfully balance delivering quickly with creating high-quality deliverables? Those often feel like they're directly at odds, forcing you to choose one or the other.
They absolutely can be, and that's precisely where intelligent tailoring become your most valuable tool. Let's use a very common analogy. Imagine you're overseeing the construction of a new hospital wing. That's typically a highly predictive approach, right? With detailed architectural plans, strict quality checks at each stage, from the foundation to the sterile operating rooms, and absolute, non-negotiable compliance with building codes and health regulations. You wouldn't and couldn't rush the structural integrity or the electrical wiring just to finish quickly. Here, quality and compliance are paramount, even if it adds significant time and cost. The balance here heavily favors quality, safety, and regulatory adherence.
Absolutely. For something as foundational and critical as a hospital, you prioritize rock-solid reliability and safety above all else. And your tailoring must reflect that unwavering commitment.
Exactly. Now let's pivot. Imagine you're leading a team designing a new feature for a popular social media app, or maybe developing a novel software product for an emerging market. Here, delivering quickly to gather market feedback and adapting to change based on rapid user response might be much more critical. You might prioritize getting a minimum viable product, an MVP, out the door in a matter of weeks, even if it's not absolutely perfect or feature-rich, because the value of learning quickly from real users and iterating outweighs the risk of a perfect but late product that misses its window of opportunity. See the difference?
Yeah, the balance shifts completely.
The balance shifts significantly towards speed, adaptability, and optimizing perceived value delivered, even if initial quality might be less rigidly defined than for that hospital. A powerful real-world example from the source material is in a highly regulated industry like pharmaceuticals. If you're developing a new drug, you will always prioritize compliance and quality above almost all else. The rigor of their documentation, the multi-stage testing, the numerous clinical trials, the extensive approval processes, it's immense. That inherently impacts speed and cost. You simply cannot cut corners there without risking lives and, frankly, enormous legal consequences. Their tailoring would build in extensive quality gates, formal reviews at every single stage, meticulous record-keeping for every batch, and multi-level approvals, even if it means a project timeline spanning years and a budget in the hundreds of millions. The trade-offs are accepted and deeply embedded in their tailored approach because the consequences of failure are so astronomically high. It's also important to acknowledge that there are many different methodologies available today, like Waterfall, Agile, Scrum, Kanban, each providing descriptions of processes, phases, methods, artifacts, templates. These are incredibly useful, but it's critical to understand that they are not customized to an organizational context or a specific project. They are general frameworks, blueprints, if you will. They must be tailored. The source material specifically warns against a common, critical mistake made by inexperienced practitioners: trying to apply a methodology verbatim without regard to the project's specific type, its size, its complexity, its duration, or the unique organizational context. That's a recipe for disaster, almost guaranteed to create friction, delays, and, well, frustration.
So the methodology is a great starting point, a comprehensive guide, but never a rigid rule book to be followed blindly. It sounds like you have to consciously mold it to your unique project, or else you're building with the wrong tools. But isn't there often internal resistance, maybe even bureaucracy, that makes it incredibly difficult to actually break away from those long-standing, seemingly redundant steps, even when you know they're not adding value?
You've hit on a core challenge there, definitely, which we'll address more when we talk about the tailoring process itself. It's precisely about understanding, evaluating, and then skillfully balancing all those competing demands and organizational factors to create a practical, effective operating environment for your specific project.
Which naturally leads us to wonder, given all these intricate challenges and the undeniable need to adapt, what are the truly tangible benefits of this intentional tailoring? Why should we bother going through this careful adaptation when a ready-made template might seem, well, easier?
Well, tailoring isn't just a nice-to-have, it's a strategic necessity. It's needed to suit the organization, its operating environment, and the specific project needs. It ensures appropriate management, which directly translates into better outcomes. Let's go back to those contrasting examples to really emphasize this. For a critical project, like building a nuclear reactor, you absolutely need extensive upfront planning, immense rigor in execution, multiple checks and balances, and comprehensive auditable reporting. Skipping safety protocols for efficiency. Unthinkable. Catastrophic. The level of formality is inherently and necessarily high. Now consider a smaller, less critical project, like a team of 5 people making a small software update to an internal tool, perhaps adjusting a field in a CRM system. Applying the same rigorous formal processes that you'd use for a nuclear reactor, multiple levels of sign-offs for every minor change, exhaustive documentation for a trivial bug fix, weekly status report to a board of directors, it would be not only overly burdensome, but also incredibly wasteful. It would kill morale, slow down the work unnecessarily, and consume resources far disproportionate to the project's actual value or risk.
I can certainly imagine a small, nimble team rebelling against that much bureaucracy. It sounds like a fast track to demotivation and frustration. So, beyond just fitting better, what does this intentional adaptation truly give the project team and the project itself? What's the strategic advantage?
It gives them a significant, often underestimated advantage. The benefits are quite clear and compelling. First, you often see more commitment from project team members who helped tailor the approach. When people are involved in shaping how they work, they take ownership, they feel empowered, they're more engaged, and more invested in its success. It transforms them from cogs in a machine into active architects of their work environment.
That sense of ownership is huge.
It really is. Second, it leads to increased efficiency. By consciously removing unnecessary steps or adding crucial ones that were missing, you streamline operations. You eliminate waste, reduce rework, and focus resources precisely where they're most needed, delivering more value with less effort. Third, you get improved project performance and outcomes. When processes are truly aligned with the project's actual needs, rather than being a generic template, you're much more likely to achieve your objectives effectively, deliver the intended value, and meet stakeholder expectations. And finally, it ensures better alignment with the industry, the organizational culture, and the project management maturity of the organization. This alignment reduces friction, leverages existing strengths, and helps the project integrate seamlessly into the broader organizational context, preventing it from feeling like an isolated, disruptive island. In essence, tailoring transforms project management from a bureaucratic hurdle into your most potent strategic advantage, turning compliance into genuine competitive edge.
Those are truly powerful benefits. It sounds like tailoring takes project management from being a rigid, compliance-focused exercise to becoming a dynamic, strategic advantage. It shifts the mindset from how do we follow the rules to how do we craft the right rules for this success. Now that we understand why we tailor, let's get into the what. What exactly can we customize? Or what are the levers we can pull, so to speak, in a project?
Excellent question. You've hit on the core of it. Our guide actually breaks this down into 5 crucial areas where you can truly get your hands dirty with customization. Think of these as the 5 core levers you can pull to dramatically customize your project's operational framework. The first, and perhaps most foundational, is your life cycle and development approach selection.
Okay, tell us more about how we tailor that. It seems like a pretty big decision right up front.
It is indeed a fundamental decision. A project lifecycle defines the overall phases a project goes through, from initiation to closure. The development approach, on the other hand, describes how you actually deliver the product, service, or result within those phases, whether it's predictive, adaptive, iterative, incremental. Deciding on these and how they combine is a core tailoring decision. It's absolutely not a one-size-fits-all choice. For example, the source material provides a fantastic mini case study, a new data center project. The construction of the physical facility, the actual building itself, the HVAC systems, raised floors, core infrastructure, might predominantly use a predictive or waterfall approach because the requirements are largely stable, known up front, and highly dependent on sequential completion. You need detailed architectural plans, sequential execution, adherence to codes.
Makes sense for building something physical.
Right. But for establishing the computing capabilities within that data center, deploying virtualization software, configuring networking, integrating servers and storage, writing automation scripts, an adaptive approach, perhaps iterative or agile, might be far more suitable. Why? Because technology in this space evolves rapidly, specific requirements for software integration can change based on vendor updates or security patches, and you need the flexibility to respond to new developments or insights quickly.
So on a single large complex project, you might actually have different parts of the project running with completely different methodologies. It's not about choosing one model for the whole thing, but finding the right mix and even combining them into a hybrid approach.
Exactly. From an overall project-level view, this combination of approaches represents a hybrid approach. However, individual teams within that project, the construction team, for instance, and the computing team, might only experience one type of development approach, predictive or iterative, respectively. The tailoring happens at the overall project level, recognizing that different components require different delivery mechanisms to be most effective. It's about recognizing that, well, what works for concrete doesn't work for code. The second crucial area we tailor is processes.
Okay, what exactly does that involve at a granular level? How do we tailor a process?
Process tailoring is about determining which portions or elements of your standard processes should be adjusted, optimized, or even eliminated. This is where it gets really granular and practical, where you directly impact the day-to-day work. You might add processes or elements to bring required rigor or address unique conditions. For instance, on a safety-critical aerospace project, you might add independent third-party inspections for every component that aren't typically part of a standard internal process, ensuring an extra layer of validation. You could modify existing processes to better suit project or team requirements. An excellent example from the source is modifying the format of project documents to accommodate team members with visual limitations, ensuring accessibility and inclusivity, making the process work for everyone involved.
That's a great example of practical modification.
It is. Crucially, and this often addresses your earlier point about bureaucracy, you can remove processes or steps if they don't add value for this specific project. Think about a small, highly collaborative, co-located team with excellent real-time communication. Do they really need formal, written meeting minutes for every daily stand-up? Probably not. Removing that saves significant time, avoids unnecessary bureaucracy, and lets the team focus on actual work. The challenge, as you hinted, is often navigating organizational inertia, or, that's how we've always done it, attitudes to make these intelligent removals.
Yeah, removing things can be politically harder than adding them sometimes.
Often true. You can also blend processes. This means incorporating methods or philosophies from other disciplines. For example, using appreciative inquiry methods from organizational development in your lessons learned meetings for a predictive project to foster better collaboration and focus on strengths, not just problems. And finally, you can align processes. This means integrating your project processes with existing external standards and practices. Many disciplines have their own language, tools, practices for areas like risk management or data privacy, so aligning can be vital for compliance and smooth integration.
That removed point is powerful and, frankly, often the hardest part. It's not just about adding more layers or complexity, but truly optimizing and streamlining, getting rid of what's not serving the project. That often takes courage, doesn't it?
It absolutely does take courage and a strong justification based on value. The goal is effectiveness and efficiency, not just blind adherence to a rigid template. The third aspect we tailor is engagement.
Okay, engagement sounds like it's all about people and how they interact, the human element.
It very much is. This refers to how people involved in the project are managed, how they collaborate, and their overall level of involvement and contribution. First, we consider the people themselves. This entails evaluating the skills, experience, capabilities of both project leadership and team members. Then, you consciously select who should be involved and in what capacity based on the project type and its operating conditions. For example, for a particularly challenging, high-stakes, or time-constrained project, it's far more logical to assign very experienced team members who have a proven track record, rather than bringing in less experienced individuals who might require more guidance and time.
Makes sense. Match the people to the challenge.
Exactly. Then there's empowerment. This is about choosing the level of responsibility and local decision-making that should be deferred to the project team. Some environments and team member capabilities naturally support high levels of empowerment, allowing teams to self-organize and make many decisions autonomously. In other situations, perhaps with less experienced teams or in highly regulated environments where errors have severe consequences, less empowerment with more supervision and direction might be preferable to mitigate risks. And finally, integration. Project teams can be quite diverse, often including contributors from contracted entities, channel partners, or different internal departments who might not traditionally work together. Tailoring considers how you strategically create one project team from this diverse collection of contributors, fostering collaboration and shared purpose to facilitate optimal performance and realization of project outcomes. Without proper integration, you risk silos and conflicting objectives.
So it's about the human side of project management, making sure the right people are in the right roles with the right level of autonomy, and critically, that everyone works together cohesively. The cost of poor engagement can be astronomical, leading to miscommunication and wasted effort.
Exactly. You're crafting the social and organizational structure of the project for maximum effectiveness. The fourth area for tailoring is tools.
This sounds straightforward, pick the right software. But I imagine there are nuances beyond just features, maybe cost or compatibility.
Indeed. This involves selecting the appropriate software or equipment the project team will use. While it seems simple, the project team often has the best insight into the most suitable, practical, and user-friendly tools for their specific tasks. They are the ones in the trenches after all. However, their choices might need tempering based on associated costs, existing organizational licenses, or larger organizational constraints that the project team itself cannot change. For instance, the organization might have a preferred suite of software for consistency, or a specific budget for tools that limits options. I once saw a team forced to use an outdated project management system that added hours of admin burden each week simply because that's what the company paid for. It led to widespread frustration and unofficial shadow systems popping up, which completely defeated the purpose. Tailoring here means finding the sweet spot between what the team needs and what the organization can realistically provide.
A perfect example of balancing team input with larger organizational realities and constraints. It's about maximizing utility within real-world limitations. And what's the fifth and final aspect we can tailor?
The fifth aspect is methods and artifacts. This is about tailoring the means that will be used to achieve project outcomes, ensuring those methods are suited for the environment and culture. It also involves tailoring the documents, templates, and other artifacts that will be used on the project. This ensures they are appropriate for the specific project's environment and culture. This might include adjusting reporting cycles from weekly to biweekly, or maybe even on demand, based on the project's pace and stakeholder needs. It could mean modifying the specific templates used for various documents, perhaps making them more visual for an adaptive team, or more detailed for a predictive project. Or it might involve adapting communication styles to better suit the stakeholders and team, moving from formal written reports to interactive dashboards, for instance. It's about making sure your deliverables and documentation are truly fit for purpose, not just generic outputs.
So from the overarching life cycle down to the specific forms and reports we use, everything can, and really should, be customized. That's a truly comprehensive approach to project management, touching every layer of a project's operation.
Absolutely. It's pervasive.
Okay, now that we understand what tailoring is and why it's so vital, let's look at how it's actually done in a structured way. You mentioned a process.
Yes, the source material outlines a structured four-step tailoring process. It's iterative, meaning you revisit and refine it throughout the project's life, and it builds directly on those guiding principles of project management we discussed. If you were looking at a diagram, you'd see it flowing from select an initial development approach to tailor for organization, then tailor for project, and finally, implement ongoing improvement.
That sounds like a very logical progression, a systematic way to approach something that could otherwise feel overwhelming. Let's break down each step, starting with step 1, select initial development approach.
Right, this is your foundational step. It's where the project team determines the primary development approach that will be used for the project, whether it's predictive, adaptive, iterative, incremental, or maybe some combination. How do they do this? Well, it's not a random choice. Project teams apply their collective knowledge of the product or deliverable, the desired delivery cadence, how frequently you need to deliver increments, and their awareness of all the available options to select the most appropriate approach for their specific situation. It's often a highly collaborative decision, involving assessing criteria like the prevailing organizational culture, the organization's overall project management maturity, and specific project characteristics, all to make an informed and strategic choice.
So it's like choosing the right type of vehicle for a journey before you start customizing it for the terrain or the passengers. You wouldn't take a sports car off-roading for a challenging trek, just like you wouldn't use a slow-moving heavy-duty truck for a quick sprint across town. The initial choice sets the fundamental capability.
An excellent analogy. You choose the fundamental model first, based on the broad requirements of the journey.
Okay, with the initial approach selected, what's next? Step 2.
That brings us to step 2, tailor for the organization.
Ah, this sounds like where the rubber meets the road with existing company structures, policies, and potentially some of that resistance we talked about.
It absolutely is. While project teams own and improve their specific processes, organizations often require a certain level of approval and oversight to ensure alignment across the board. Many organizations will have a general project methodology, a management approach, or a development approach that serves as a common starting point. These organizational guides are typically there to support repeatable processes, ensure consistent measures of capability, and drive continuous improvement across all projects. So tailoring at the project level must align with these broader organizational policies and governance frameworks. You can't just, go rogue. To demonstrate that a project team's tailoring decisions won't jeopardize the organization's larger strategic goals or its stewardship responsibilities, the project team may actually need to justify their chosen tailored approach to relevant stakeholders. This is particularly true if it deviates significantly from standard organizational practices or established norms.
That makes perfect sense. You can't just decide to implement a radical new methodology if it completely disrupts how your project interfaces with other departments, or if it clashes with the company's overall operational model. Are there any specific constraints here that often come into play, things we need to watch out for?
Yes, there are significant ones. For instance, large safety-critical projects, like that hospital wing we discussed or building a bridge, will often have additional oversight and stringent approval requirements. This is to help prevent errors, potential loss, or subsequent issues where the stakes are extremely high, both for human safety and financial impact. Also, projects performed under contract may have explicit terms that specify the use of a particular life cycle, delivery approach, or methodology. In such cases, the degree of tailoring might be very limited, dictated by external contractual obligations rather than internal preferences.
And who is typically involved in this organizational level of approval or oversight? Is it just the project manager's direct supervisor, or is it usually a broader group, like a PMO?
That's a great question, and it heavily depends on the scope and impact of the tailoring. Tailoring that primarily impacts only the project team, like when they decide on their internal meeting schedule or who works from where on a given day. Generally requires less oversight and might be approved by the project manager alone. However, tailoring that impacts external groups, such as significantly changing how and when other departments are engaged, or major deviations in reporting structures, may require approval by a project management office or PMO, or sometimes even a value delivery office or VDO. The PMO or VDO can also play a really helpful proactive role here. assisting project teams, providing ideas and solutions gleaned from other projects within the organization, effectively acting as internal consultants to facilitate smart tailoring.
So they can be a resource, not just a roadblock.
Ideally, yes. If you imagine a hierarchy, a general project management methodology or development approach sits at the top, representing the organization's overall guidance. From that, you might see tailored methodologies for different types of projects within the organization, say, one for small, low-risk internal IT projects, and another for large, sensitive external client engagements. Then below that, you get down to the specific, even more refined methodology for Project A, Project B, Project C, and so on. This illustrates how tailoring kind of trickles down and refines from the broader organizational level to the specific project level, while still staying within those organizational boundaries.
That visual helps tremendously in understanding the layers of tailoring and how they connect. Okay, now for step 3, tailor for the project. This sounds like where the deep customization truly happens, where it gets personal for the project.
It absolutely is. This step is about refining the approach specifically for this particular project in all its unique glory. The project team engages in critical self-reflection, asking probing questions about 3 key attributes that are unique to their project: the product or deliverable they are creating, the characteristics of the project team itself, and the prevailing culture within the organization and the team. The answers to these questions are what guide the precise tailoring of processes, the chosen delivery approach, the life cycle, the tools, and the methods and artifacts. This is where the rubber truly meets the road.
Let's unpack those 3 attributes. First, what kind of questions does the team ask about the product or deliverable attributes? How does the what inform the how?
This attribute focuses intensely on the characteristics of what you're actually building or delivering, as these dictate your approach. Questions include things like, how much compliance or criticality is involved? For a medical device, the rigor needed is vastly different from, say, a marketing brochure. This dictates the required quality assurance and regulatory oversight. What type of product or deliverable is it? Is it a well-known physical object like a building, which has predictable physical laws? Or something intangible, innovative, complex like software, a new drug designed, or a complex financial service? What industry market does it serve? Is it highly regulated like finance or healthcare, fast-moving like consumer tech, or slow to evolve like heavy infrastructure? Who are the primary competitors and what are their speed-to-market dynamics? What about the technology involved? Is it stable and well-established with predictable outcomes? Or rapidly evolving, bleeding edge, and at risk of obsolescence requiring constant adaptation?
That technology question seems huge these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
Also, what's the overall time frame for the project? Weeks or months or several years? The longer the duration, the more likely requirements or external factors will change. How much stability of requirements can we expect? Are they likely to be fixed, or are they prone to change frequently as we learn more? Are there significant security concerns that demand specific processes or tools? And critically, can we achieve incremental delivery? Can the team develop and get stakeholder feedback in small, usable increments, allowing for early course correction? Or is it something that's hard to evaluate until near completion, like a large-scale construction project?
So for a novel software product in a fast-moving market with unstable requirements and high technological uncertainty, an adaptive approach that embraces change makes a lot more sense than a predictive one where everything is locked down up front. You wouldn't want to specify every single detail of a groundbreaking app before it's even been tested by users because you know those requirements will evolve rapidly.
Exactly. The product's nature strongly influences the most effective approach. Next, let's look at project team considerations.
Okay, what questions should the team be asking about themselves and their dynamics? How does the team structure influence tailoring?
Here, the focus is squarely on the human element and their working environment, as this directly impacts collaboration and communication strategies. What's the project team size? How many full-time and part-time people will be working on it? A team of 5 operates very differently from a team of 50. What's the project team geography? Are they co-located in one room, or are they remote, or even highly distributed across multiple time zones? This profoundly impacts communication strategy. What about organizational distribution? Where are supporting groups and other critical stakeholders located in relation to the core team? Are they easily accessible? What's the project team experience? Do they have significant experience in the industry, within the organization, or even working together as a cohesive unit? Do they possess all the necessary skills, tools, technology, or will training be required? And finally, what's their access to the customer? Is it practical to get frequent and timely feedback directly from customers or their representatives? This is crucial for adaptive approaches.
I can immediately see how a team distributed across 3 time zones would tailor its communication process vastly differently than if everyone were in one room. You'd need to consider asynchronous communication tools, maybe different meeting schedules to accommodate everyone, and relying more on meticulously documented updates rather than, spontaneous hallway conversations.
Spot on. Team characteristics are huge drivers of process design. And finally, we evaluate the culture.
This one feels a bit softer, maybe harder to quantify, but equally important because it touches on the unspoken rules and values of the organization.
It is, and it's absolutely essential, often acting as a powerful enabler or a significant constraint. This involves considerations regarding buy-in. Is there genuine acceptance, active support, and enthusiasm for the proposed delivery approach from both the team and key stakeholders? Without buy-in, even the best tailored plan can falter. Trust. Are there high levels of trust that the project team is capable of and committed to delivering the project outcomes effectively? A lack of trust can lead to micromanagement and unnecessary oversight. Empowerment. Is the project team trusted, supported, and encouraged to own and develop its working environment, agreements, and decisions? Or is it expected to simply follow directives? And what is the overall organizational culture? Do the organizational values and existing culture align with the chosen project approach? For instance, does the culture favor empowering teams versus micromanaging and checking every single step? Does it trust local decision-making and rapid iteration? Or does it require extensive external approval for everything, even minor adjustments?
So culture really sets the stage.
It really does. It's also worth noting that in organizations that heavily use adaptive approaches, you might find a Value Delivery Office, or VDO. This VDO often plays an enabling role, focusing on coaching project teams, providing resources, and building adaptive skills throughout the organization, rather than purely a management or oversight function. This kind of VDO fosters a culture where tailoring and adaptation are not just allowed, but actively encouraged and celebrated.
It sounds like a project team operating in a highly trusting, empowering culture will have a lot more flexibility in tailoring their processes and approach than one in a very hierarchical, control-oriented environment. The cultural environment really sets the boundaries of what's truly possible and how smoothly new approaches can be adopted.
Precisely. Culture is a major enabler or constraint for how much and what kind of tailoring is possible. Now for the final step. Step 4. Implement ongoing improvement.
So tailoring isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing, is it? It's not a one-time decision you make at the beginning and then just stick with?
Far from it. We need to emphasize this point. Tailoring is not a single one-time exercise. It's a continuous, dynamic process. As the project progresses, issues will inevitably arise, the product or deliverable will evolve based on feedback, and new learnings will emerge from the team's experience. These are all signals that further tailoring could bring significant improvements. We call this progressive elaboration. As you learn more, you refine more. Think of it like planning a complex road trip across a continent. You start with the big picture of the destination, major cities, but you don't map out every single turn of a 3,000-mile journey on day one. Instead, as you get closer to each leg, you progressively elaborate, figuring out exact routes, where you'll refuel, what local restaurants to try, maybe even deciding to take a scenic detour because you learned about it mid-trip. You refine the details as the journey unfolds, and you gain more immediate context.
That's a great way to think about it, progressive refinement.
Exactly. Mechanisms like review points, phase gates, and retrospectives, especially critical for adaptive teams, all provide explicit, structured opportunities to inspect and adapt. Not just the product, but the process itself, the development approach, and even the frequency of delivery. These are built-in checkpoints for continuous improvement, for constantly asking, is this still the best way for us to work? The benefits of this ongoing engagement are significant. It fosters immense pride of ownership among the project team because they're actively shaping how they work, not just what they work on. It demonstrates a profound commitment to quality and efficiency, encourages innovation, and crucially, it helps avoid settling for the status quo simply because that's how we started. Instead of just following a static plan, you're always looking for ways to do things better, faster, or more effectively.
So it's like a project management philosophy, always looking for how to do things better, not just rigidly following a static blueprint. It's about building in the learning loop directly into the process, making the project itself a continually improving organism. That's a truly innovative mindset.
It is indeed. And that leads us nicely into how this applies across the board.
Right. You mentioned tailoring touches everything.
Now, we've talked about tailoring the overall approach and process, but it goes even deeper, becoming incredibly granular. The work within each of the PMP performance domains like stakeholders, project team, planning, delivery, uncertainty, and so on, can also be tailored. The guiding principles of project management inform how practitioners should tailor these domains to meet the unique needs of their specific project context and environment. So, tailoring is truly pervasive. It touches every aspect of project life.
This really drives home that tailoring isn't just a big one-off strategic decision at the start of the project. It applies to every single facet of how we run things, from who we talk to how we measure success. Let's walk through some of those performance domains and what specific tailoring considerations apply to each. Maybe start with stakeholders.
Gladly. Let's start with stakeholders. When tailoring for stakeholders, you'd ask, is there a highly collaborative and transparent environment for stakeholders and suppliers, or is it more adversarial or arm's length? Are your stakeholders predominantly internal to your organization, external clients or partners, or a complex mix of both? How and how often should you communicate with them? What communication technology is available or preferred by them? Is one primary language used across the project, or do you need to make allowances for diverse language groups and cultural communication norms? How many stakeholders are there, and how diverse is the culture within that stakeholder community? And what are the relationships and existing networks within that stakeholder community? The more networks a stakeholder participates in, the more complex the flow of information, and potentially misinformation they may receive, which profoundly impacts how you manage their engagement strategy.
That immediately makes me think of an international project with multiple legal teams, various government regulatory bodies, and internal departments spread across continents. The stakeholder tailoring there would be incredibly intricate and require constant vigilance for nuance.
Absolutely. Next, for the project team itself, the people doing the actual work, consider their physical location. Are team members co-located in the same geographical area or distributed across multiple time zones, perhaps globally? This fundamentally changes how you approach collaboration. Are they full-time or part-time members? What's their availability? Are there available contractors, and how do they integrate? How is project team development and training managed? Are there established organizational tools, or do new ones need to be implemented? And are there team members with special needs or diverse backgrounds that require specific accommodations or cultural sensitivity training for the whole team to manage diversity effectively?
Thinking about how you tailor team building activities for a fully remote, globally distributed team versus one that's all in the same office makes a huge difference. You can't just, throw a pizza party for a remote team.
It truly does. Then we have development approach and life cycle. Here, we're asking, which development approach is most appropriate? If you've initially chosen adaptive, should it lean more towards incremental delivery or iterative? Is a hybrid approach the best fit? What about the length and number of phases in the project lifecycle, short and numerous, or longer and fewer? And does the organization have formal or informal audit and governance policies, procedures, and guidelines that dictate or strongly influence these choices? Next, planning. For planning, you'd consider what level of detail is truly required for the plan or the deliverables. Highly detailed blueprints for critical components, maybe a high-level sketch for a preliminary idea. What approach to estimating will you use based on resource productivity and historical data, more predictive or more adaptive methods like relative sizing and expert judgment? Does the organization have formal or informal policies for cost estimating and budgeting, especially with adaptive approaches where budgets might be more flexible? And crucially, are local laws and regulations regarding procurement activities thoroughly integrated into your planning processes to avoid legal pitfalls or delays?
That brings in legal and financial considerations, which can significantly constrain or guide your planning process, ensuring compliance isn't an afterthought.
Exactly. Then, project work. Here, you tailor how you approach managing key aspects like scope, schedule, budget, quality, resources, complexity. How will knowledge be managed to foster collaboration and prevent information silos? What specific information should be collected throughout and at the end? How will it be collected, stored, managed? What technology is available for handling information and artifacts of robust PMIS or spreadsheets and emails? Will historical information and lessons learned be systematically made available to future projects? Does the organization have a formal knowledge management repository? Is it required? Is it accessible and actually used?
So many practical questions about just getting the work done and managing the information flow.
Following that, we have delivery. Tailoring here involves, does the organization have formal or informal requirements management systems? How robust are they? Are there existing formal or informal validation and control policies dictating how deliverables are checked and approved? What specific quality policies, procedures, tools, techniques, templates are used, and are they appropriate for this project's quality demands? What's the desired frequency of delivery and review with stakeholders? Are there specific areas with unstable requirements? If so, what's the best tailored approach for addressing them? Perhaps through continuous feedback loops. And how does sustainability factor into project management or product development? Are there environmental or social impact considerations to embed?
That's a lot to consider just for how you deliver the final product or service beyond simply handing it over. It's about the entire pipeline of creation and validation.
It is, and it's essential for ensuring ultimate value. Then we look at uncertainty. Here, you tailor your approach to risk management, considering what is the organization's risk appetite and tolerance for this specific endeavor? How will risk management effectively integrate with the chosen development approach? Detailed upfront analysis for predictive or continuous risk identification for adaptive. How will complexity, technological uncertainty, product novelty, delivery cadence, or progress tracking challenges impact the project's risk profile? Does the project's size, budget, duration, scope, team size require a more detailed, robust risk approach, or is a lighter one justified? Is a highly robust risk management approach demanded by innovation, new tech, complex commercial arrangements, intricate interfaces, or critical external dependencies? And how strategically important is the project? Does its level of risk impact overall organizational performance or involve major innovation?
So for a small, internal, low-risk project, you might have a very informal, simple risk log. But for something strategically critical involving brand new technology with global implications, you'd have a full-blown, formal, and continuously updated risk management plan, complete with contingency and mitigation strategies.
Precisely. Finally, for measurement. Here, you, Tailor. How is value truly measured for this specific project and its stakeholders? What specific measures will be collected? Schedule adherence, cost performance, quality metrics, performance indicators, customer satisfaction. How is performance measured, both during execution and after completion, to determine ultimate success? And what are the specific project status reporting requirements? How often, to whom, and in what format will progress be communicated?
That's an incredible list. It really shows that tailoring is a continuous, granular activity across every single aspect of a project. It's not just a strategic decision at the beginning, but a tactical, ongoing adjustment that constantly seeks the optimal path.
You've hit on a critical point there. Tailoring isn't just for the beginning. It's an ongoing, iterative process. And projects are constantly providing us with signals that further adaptation might be needed. For teams using adaptive approaches, retrospectives are incredibly key for identifying what's working and what's not, allowing for rapid course correction. For other projects, you need to be vigilant for issues arising, emerging threats, unexpected quality assurance statistics, and consistent stakeholder feedback. These are all indicators that your current tailored approach might need another look, another adjustment.
Can you give us some common red flags, those telltale signs that something is off, and what specific adjustments we might consider? It would be incredibly helpful to have a sort of project management health check or a diagnostic toolkit.
Absolutely. The source material provides some fantastic insights here. Let's walk through some common situations and tailoring suggestions. Think of these as prompts for inspection and adaptation. Okay, situation. You're consistently seeing poor quality deliverables making it through your processes. Suggestion. What you might need to do is add more feedback verification loops and quality assurance steps earlier in the process. Build in more checks to catch issues before they escalate. Perhaps introduce peer reviews, independent testing, or automated quality gates.
That makes perfect sense. More eyes, more points for correction, and catching issues earlier means less costly rework later.
Exactly. Okay. Situation. Team members are frequently unsure of how to proceed or undertake their assigned work, leading to maybe paralysis or mistakes. Suggestion. Here you should consider adding more explicit guidance, more targeted training, and more frequent verification steps to ensure clarity, competence, and confidence. This might involve creating clearer standard operating procedures, providing mentor support, or conducting more frequent check-ins.
So if the team is floundering or hesitant, don't just push harder. Provide better support, clearer direction, and stronger foundations.
Exactly. Situation. You're experiencing long, frustrating delays waiting for approvals on critical decisions or deliverables. A common pain point. Suggestion. Try streamlining approval decisions. This could mean reducing the number of people authorized to make decisions, or setting clear value thresholds below which approvals can be handled at a lower, more efficient level without involving senior leadership. Empowering project managers or team leads more.
Fewer bottlenecks and more distributed authority. That's a classic problem that slows so many projects down.
It absolutely is. Situation. There's too much work in progress, or WIP, or you're seeing high rates of scrap or rework, indicating inefficiencies in the flow. Suggestion. Use techniques like value stream mapping to visually chart the flow of work, identify where blockages or waste occur, and then design solutions. Implement Kanban boards to visualize work, limit WIP, and identify bottlenecks in real time. This helps you propose and test solutions to optimize the flow.
Visualizing the work can be so powerful for identifying where things are getting stuck and where the true inefficiencies lie. It's hard to fix what you can't see.
Absolutely. Situation. Key stakeholders are not engaged, or they consistently share negative or surprising feedback, indicating a disconnect. Suggestion. You need to critically evaluate whether sufficient, relevant, and timely information is being shared. Check if feedback loops are present and actually working, truly listening to their input. Consider if deeper engagement, perhaps more direct involvement in certain decisions or workshops, might work better than simply communicating at them.
That goes right back to tailoring the engagement aspect we talked about earlier, finding the right way to interact for this project.
It does. Situation. There's a persistent lack of visibility and understanding of project progress, even among the project team or key leaders. Nobody seems to know where things really stand. Suggestion. Check to ensure appropriate measures are actually being collected, analyzed, shared, and discussed during team and stakeholder meetings. Critically, validate that there's clear agreement on what these measures mean and how they indicate progress, both within the team and with stakeholders. Are you measuring the right things, and do people truly understand what those measurements mean for the project's health?
You can't improve what you don't measure, or what you measure incorrectly or confusingly. Clarity in metrics is key.
Exactly. And finally, situation. Issues and/or risks for which the team is completely unprepared continue to surface, requiring the team to constantly react and put out fires rather than proactively progressing work. Suggestion. Explore the root causes to identify whether there are related gaps in your project processes or activities. This suggests a deeper systemic problem in your risk management or planning that simply putting out fires won't solve. You might need to add more robust risk identification, analysis, or mitigation steps to your process.
These are such practical diagnostics. It's like a project management health check you can perform at any stage to ensure your tailored approach is still serving the project effectively. This is incredibly valuable for moving from reactive to proactive project leadership.
It really helps frame that continuous improvement aspect.
So let's try and summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive on tailoring.
Okay, let's bring it all together for you. The core definition to remember that underpins everything we've discussed is this. Tailoring is the considered intentional adaptation of the project management approach, governance, and processes to make them more suitable for the unique environment and the specific project at hand. It involves careful analysis of your context, mindful selection of what works, and precise adjustment of how you operate.
And the why for this isn't just a theoretical point. It's crucial for practical success. There's simply no one-size-fits-all approach that works for every project. Tailoring helps you skillfully balance those often competing demands like speed versus cost, or quality versus compliance, or even stakeholder satisfaction versus adaptability. Ultimately, this leads to greater commitment from the team, drives significantly increased efficiency, and produces better project outcomes overall.
Right. And we identified what you can specifically tailor within a project. Think of them as those 5 core levers. The project's overall life cycle and development approach, its specific processes, how you manage stakeholder and team engagement, the tools you utilize, and the methods and artifacts you produce. Every piece of your project's operational framework is customizable.
And it's not just a single decision you make and then forget. You gave us that clear, logical 4-step process. First, you select the initial development approach. Then, you tailor for the broader organization. Next, you perform the deep customization when you tailor for the specific project. And finally, and critically, you implement ongoing improvement. The powerful takeaway there is that it's an ongoing iterative cycle. You keep inspecting, adapting, and refining as you learn more throughout the project's life.
Precisely. And remember, while project teams undertake this vital tailoring, the bounds and the approach to it are usually guided and governed by organizational guidelines and governance. This ensures alignment with the broader business strategy, consistency where it's truly needed, and smooth external interfaces between project teams and the rest of the organization, preventing isolated projects from becoming disruptive forces.
This has been such an illuminating and incredibly practical deep dive. Thank you for truly demystifying tailoring and showing us its immense power. It transforms project management from what some might mistakenly see as a rigid rulebook into a dynamic, adaptable, and incredibly powerful practice. It's about building a project management system that actually works for the project and its unique context, not against it, allowing you to unlock true efficiency and deliver exceptional value.
My pleasure. And I'd like to leave you with this thought. Tailoring is not just about adapting a project to its environment. It's about actively shaping that environment for success. The truly skilled project professional doesn't just manage projects. They craft the perfect approach for each unique challenge. What will you tailor on your next project to unlock its full potential and truly make it your own? Next time, we'll shift our focus to the very first performance domain, diving into how we effectively engage with the vital stakeholders on any project.